Hi everyone, my name is King IV and this is Introduction to Excel Basics. This is the fourth lesson in the series of 8 lessons on the Introduction Basics of Excel. So let's get started. So we're going to cover basic formulas today. So you should have the Excel Basics spreadsheet open, and what we're going to do here is we're going to go freeze pane, top row, and formulas are really important because they help you analyze the data that you have, allow you to create net new information, whether that's combining two different data sets within the same spreadsheet, whether that's combining other data that you've complemented with the spreadsheet, whether that's taking subsections of existing data to produce new information. So the easiest one that we're going to cover is this function called sum. So what you'll see here is that we're going to click on home or our formulas, and we're mostly going to focus on this formula tab and click on auto sum. And what auto sum is, you'll see it populates the formula bar here. This is the formula bar, and also populates the cell. So in this case, it goes equals sum, which is calling the function sum, and then it's going to give it a range of L2, which is the second row in this column, to A185, which is just the cell just above. So if we press OK, what you'll see here is now we have a value of 4,159, which is net new information. It tells me that the total capacity of all these initiatives is 4,159.84 megawatts. So that's good, that's useful. So what we're going to do is go to the very top, to the top left hand corner, and we're going to filter on let's just filter on these three counties, and then as well leave the blanks. So if we were to go back to the bottom right hand corner, the problem is that the problem sometimes with sum is that it totals everything without taking into context of what's actually being shown. So if we were to highlight these cells, we see that the total capacities of this is 349.9. So having this 4,159 is very misleading. So the way we account for that is, let's first remove filters, which is Alt-AC. And let's go back down to L186. And we're going to use this function called subtotal. And subtotals are various options available, but most of the time you're going to use number 9, and you're going to comma, and then essentially you're going to highlight I forgot to put a comma, and then essentially you're going to highlight the area that you want subtotaled. So what subtotal essentially does is it's only going to sum up the values that actually appear in the data set. So if you use filters to hide data, it's not going to count those. So you'll see how useful this is. So what we're going to do here is we're going to again go to the same example. We're going to filter for County of Bruce, County of Dufferin, County of Essex, and then we're going to go down and include blank if it's there, but in this case it didn't pick it up. So what we're going to do here is now we're going to go over to L168 and 186, and you'll see here it's correctly subtotal that amount here. So very useful view. You don't have to exactly always subtotal vertically. You can also subtotal horizontally. So for example, here you can type in sum, and then you can either sum a range, which is basically like this, and it provides you the total of that, or you can sum individual cells together. So here you can click on this one cell, click on this other cell, click on this third cell, etc., etc., close the bracket, and it's going to sum those values together. So pretty quick and easy way of using this very useful function called sum. Next thing we want to do is maybe you want to count the number of cells that have numeric values, and you're probably asking why would you want to do that? Maybe you want to know how many rows there are, or maybe this is in the middle of the spreadsheet and it's hard to know how many values are actually Canadian numbers. So here we're going to use this function called count, and we're just going to highlight a few cells. So in this case we're highlighting the range L2 to L11. So this in theory should give us 10. because there's 10 numbers there. So if I were to, for example, delete this one, it's going to go back to 9, which is good. If I were to type in ABC, it's still going to leave it at 9 because it's only going to count numeric values. Say, for example, I want to count regardless if there's numeric values or alphabets or other special characters. So I can use this function called count A, which is basically count all. And we're gonna highlight the same area. So it's gonna give us the same value, which is 10. I'm gonna go back to this 22.92. I'm gonna type in ABC, and you'll see that it still counts it. If I were to delete it, it'd bring it to 9. So count A is very useful if you want to count all the non-blank content within a particular range. The next function we're going to use is we're going to go over to the left and we're going to add a column beside project description. Maybe I want to do check on whether or not these approval numbers are actually provided correctly. So in this case, I see that there's 11 characters in an approval number. So one check that I can do is do a length check, like how many characters are there, whether or not it's valid. So I'm going to use this function called length, len, which is short for length, and it's going to ask you, okay, tell me what text you want to look at. So in this case, I want to look at D2, and what I'm going to do here is click on D2. It's going to put a green box around it, and I'm going to double click this corner, which is basically going to drag the formula downwards. So if I were to use the filters, what you'll see here is the values are 0, 11, 12, and 13. So 0 is expected because if it's blank, it's going to be 0. 11 is expected because that's the correct approval length. So these 12 ones are a little bit concerning, and yours might be slightly different depending on the data set that you're using. But regardless, if it's 12 or 11, what we see here is that the issue are spaces that exist in the data. So here we're basically going to use this function called trim, and what trim does is it gets rid of all the leading, which is basically all the spaces at the beginning, and lagging, which are all the spaces at the end. So we're going to press trim around the D4. So trim, remember, it's always going to go inside then out. So first it's going to trim D4, and then it's going to tell you the length of the combined of the two. So here, now it's back down to 11. So if I were to drag that, copy that to E26, it's also going to give 11. Say, for example, I were to add a space at the end of D85. What you'll see here is it'll increase the length. And then what you'll see here is if we use trim, it's going to help remove those spaces before performing the count. So very useful. So we're going to again press Alt-A-C, and we're going to highlight column E. We're going to delete it all. Say, for example, we want to not only check the length, we also want to check what the first 4 characters are in the approval number. So we're going to use this function called, we're going to use equal, which basically initiates the formulas, and we're going to use the formula left, and then we're going to go down to D2, and then left basically says start from the left, and how many characters do you want to look at. So in this case, I want to look at 4 characters, which basically says like, okay, start from the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, export that to the view in E2. So for example, maybe I want to see like whether or not the 5th digit is a dash or not. So I'm going to use this function called mid, and mid is very similar to left. So first you're going to select the text that you're looking at, and the next thing you're going to do is select where you actually want to start. So I want to start on the 5th character. So basically I want to start at this dash and then obtain that first character. So here it basically goes to the 5th one. It says I want that one. Basically it highlights from here, and then how many characters do you want. So if I were to put 8, for example, then it would provide me 8 spaces, 8 values, including the dash. Maybe I want to see like all the numbers before the or after the dash. So I'm going to use this function called right. Basically start from the right, pick your text. This is like how many characters do you want to go start from the right. So So in this case, I'm going to go 6, and you'll see here it's going to provide you the last 6 values. So very useful. Last function I want to show you quickly is this function called concatenate. So concatenate basically combines 2 different cells together, or multiple cells together. So I'll show you an example. Concatenate. It's quite the long word. And then basically you're going to pick text 1, pick text 2, and then close the bracket. And then what you'll see here is if we expand column E, you'll see that it combined the 2 values together. Maybe I want to make them separated by space. Then what I'll do here is go in between, and then select quotation, space, quotation, which basically says like quote is basically going to give you a character or string. In this case, my string is blank. Press OK, and then basically adds a space here. So that's it for basic formulas. In the next lesson, we'll be covering conditional formulas, which are going to be a little bit more advanced. But once we do that, you'll have a good handle on the basic formulas in terms of slicing and dicing your Excel document. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next lesson.